My name's Vanessa Carter. I'm 32, and up until 4 weeks ago, I was the Chief Strategy Officer at Carter & Company. Marketing, a firm my father, Charles Carter, scraped into existence from a garage and a dream. I gave the last 10 years of my life, my 20s, my weekends, my sanity, to building that company from the ground up. Meanwhile, my younger sister, Brooke, barely lifted a finger unless it involved brunch or Bali. Then came the infamous Sunday dinner. My father, with his usual dramatic flair, raised his glass and announced the future of Carter & Co. Brooke would be handed 100% ownership of the company I'd helped scale into a $15 million powerhouse. I stood up without saying a word, walked out, resigned the next day, and never looked back. Carter & Company wasn't just a job to me. It was practically my twin. I grew up alongside it. Dad founded it in 1993, the year I turned 4. While other kids were falling asleep to fairy tales, I was hearing war stories about client presentations, pitch decks, and last-minute campaign saves. My dad's eyes would light up like a stage actor whenever he talked business. The spare bedroom-turned-office was our first HQ. I used to drift off to sleep with the fax machine beeping in the background and my parents whispering about budget forecasts like it was top-secret intel. By the time I was in high school, the business had grown enough to occupy a small office space downtown with 5 employees. Every summer, while my friends went to the beach or took nanny gigs, I was in the Carter & Company office alphabetizing paper files, answering phones, and eavesdropping on strategy calls like it was gospel. There was never a moment of doubt. I knew marketing wasn't just my future, it was already in my DNA. So when it came time for college, I didn't even blink. I chose Berkeley's Haas School of Business, one of the best in the country. Later, I earned my MBA with a focus on digital strategy and behavioral branding. Brooke, on the other hand, had always marched to the beat of her own careless drum. She was 4 years younger and studied something like cultural literature at a tiny liberal arts school no one could ever spell right. Her summers? She was off backpacking through Spain or interning at a gallery where she mostly drank espresso and posted moody photos of marble statues on Instagram. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, different strokes. But our priorities weren't even in the same universe. Every time someone mentioned business during holidays, Brooke would make this exaggerated yawn, then dramatically say, "Ugh, can we not talk shop for once?" I never took it personally. Not everyone's wired to carry a legacy. Some people just want to float. After grad school, I walked straight into Carter & Company. Dad was clear from day one. No special treatment. I wasn't his daughter there. I was just another rookie hire. My starting salary was a humble $38,000 as a junior account coordinator, same as any fresh grad walking in off the street. I sat in a shoebox-sized office with 2 other new hires and clawed my way up with results, not last names. In 3 years, I went from junior to account manager, then to director of client services. Each promotion earned, not handed. By 30, 5 years in, I was named Chief Strategy Officer. I led every major account and drove our overall strategy. I'd basically become the engine behind Carter & Company. I pivoted our focus to high-value B2B clients, industries where creativity meets technical precision. We didn't just sell ideas, we sold solutions that moved numbers. Our crown jewel? Hanover Development Group, a national commercial real estate firm we'd served for over 15 years. What started as a branding refresh turned into an $8 million annual contract. Over 50% of our company revenue rode on that relationship. Their CEO, Walter Hanover, was infamous for being impossible to please. Yet over time, he trusted me so much he'd jokingly call me his brand shrink. That account? 100% my win. I landed their international expansion deal, tripling the contract's value and solidifying our position as their go-to agency. I developed our signature process, strategic sync framework, during my MBA and perfected it through trial by client. It was our secret sauce. The framework aligned marketing with business goals. Metrics first, fluff last. It made executives actually respect marketers again. That methodology transformed Carter and Company from a modest local agency into a regional heavyweight, pushing revenue from $3 million to $15 million in less than a decade. Meanwhile, Brooke would occasionally waltz into the office between yoga retreats and creative funks, feigning interest in how the business was doing, usually right after another job fell through. Every time Brooke dropped by, Dad lit up like a Christmas tree, explaining the business like it was story time, while I sat in the next room trying to fix a client crisis. I saw the pattern, sure, but I brushed it off as harmless favoritism. You know, classic family stuff. My parents, Charles and Elaine Carter, were old school to their core. Legacy was a word they tossed around at least once a week, like it was some sacred relic we all had to protect. Naturally, I figured that meant I was the heir apparent. I had put in the time, the sweat, the damn weekends. Who else could they possibly be grooming? Brooke, meanwhile, couldn't hold a job longer than a season. She bounced from teaching to gallery gigs to blogging, and her latest thing? Social media consulting for boutiques that barely had websites. What I didn't see coming was how deep their traditional values ran, so deep, they bordered on archaic. Deep down, they still believed that the family business should go to the son. And in the absence of a son, to the daughter most likely to marry into status and keep the name alive, aka Brooke. Brooke had just gotten engaged to Ethan Wallace, the golden boy of a high-profile family with political ties. I, on the other hand, was married to my work, proudly and unapologetically. You need to know this to understand what came next. Because it wasn't just a slap in the face professionally. It shattered everything I thought I knew about loyalty, fairness, and family. It started like any other second Sunday. Mom's roast in the oven, everyone pretending to care about small talk. She'd made her signature pot roast, and Dad uncorked the fancy Cabernet he usually saved for holidays. I should have known then, something was up. Brooke floated in with Ethan on her arm, both beaming like they'd just won something. The air felt staged. Looking back, the signs were blinding. Nervous laughter from Mom. Weird glances between Brooke and Ethan. Dad clinking his glass with that overly formal tone that meant one thing: announcement time. We moved to the living room, dessert plates on our laps. Dad cleared his throat, then launched into a speech about legacy, vision, and how proud he was of Carter and Company. I smiled, thinking this was finally it, the formal passing of the torch. I mean, who else could it be? I'd been running operations solo for 2 years while he consulted from the golf course. This had to be mine. As you know, he said, swirling his brandy like he was about to narrate a Shakespearean twist. It's time we talk succession. I'm not getting any younger. Mom gave a tight smile, nodding like she couldn't wait for him to spit it out. After careful thought, your mother and I believe the future of Carter & Co. belongs entirely to Brooke. The words hit me like a slap, echoing in a silence that stretched a little too long. Brooke, who had never worked a full week at the firm, was being handed the entire company I had poured my soul into for 10 years. Brooke's shown great enthusiasm for carrying the family legacy, Dad continued, as if enthusiasm could substitute for experience. With her creative energy and Ethan's business pedigree, we think they'll take Carter & Co. into bold new territory. Brooke grinned ear to ear, either blind to my shock or completely unbothered by it. I already have a vision for rebranding the company, she chirped. It's time we pivot to something more fun, more vibrant, less corporate. The current branding feels kinda dated, Brooke chirped. We should totally pivot to something more lifestyle-y, you know? Less business, more vibe. The dated branding she was tearing down? A visual identity system I had built, refined, and that had won 3 national awards. Of course, Vanessa, Dad added with the tone of someone throwing a dog a bone. We absolutely want you to stay. Your experience will be critical in mentoring Brooke. I was supposed to mentor my sister as my boss. The same sister who once asked if a media kit was a folder with vibes. After dinner, I pulled them aside into Dad's office, a room wallpapered with my work. Awards, headlines, client accolades. I looked them both dead in the eye. Why? Sweetheart, you're already so successful. Mom cooed like I was a child needing pacifying. Brooke needs this chance to grow. You've always been the strong one. I'm capable because I earned it, I replied, voice shaking with restraint. I bled for this company. It's been my whole damn adult life. Dad leaned back as if preparing for impact. And we appreciate everything, Vanessa. You've done an outstanding job. But that was, well, your job. We paid you. Brooke needs a chance to prove herself now. Those words hit harder than I expected. A decade of 60-hour weeks, canceled birthdays, and late-night takeout at my desk, all reduced to a paycheck. And Brooke? She was being handed the kingdom because she needed it? I tried logic. Hanover Group works with us because of me. Walter only signs off if I'm in the room. Most major clients call me, not the front desk. Clients work with the firm, not individuals. Dad waved it off like I was being dramatic. They'll adjust. That's when it hit me. This wasn't business. It was blood politics. And in their eyes, I was the workhorse, not the heir. I was the engine expected to keep running while Brooke sat in the driver's seat, waving. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced for hours, cycling between choking tears and pure rage. By sunrise, my clarity was sharp as glass. I would not stick around to train my sister to run the empire I built. I wasn't about to keep feeding a legacy I wasn't allowed to own. For the first time ever, I made the terrifying, necessary choice. Me, not them. I wrote my resignation at 4 a.m., eyes still burning, printed it at the only open cafe I could find. By 7:30, it was on my father's desk. It was 2 pages. Cold, precise, effective immediately. I attached a transition plan, a USB with all active client data, and left no loose ends. I didn't spell out why. Those who knew didn't need it. Those who didn't weren't entitled to the mess. Within an hour, my phone lit up. Dad calling. I let it ring. I let it go straight to voicemail. His message was a roller coaster. Shock, then guilt, then a clipped, "Don't do anything you'll regret." I replied with 5 words. My decision is final. Goodbye. Still, I had one final obligation I refused to skip. A strategy session that afternoon with Hanover Development Group. Walter Hanover had asked for me personally to go over their fiscal year roadmap. No way was I letting anyone else touch that meeting. I walked into the boardroom like nothing had happened. 2 hours. Clean, focused. No trace of the chaos behind the scenes. Walter nodded in approval, shaking my hand with that rare glimmer of genuine trust in his eyes. "Vanessa," he said at the door, "I've worked with dozens of firms. No one's ever gotten our business the way you do. You're the reason I stuck with Carter and Company." His words were a double-edged sword, validating but painful, because I knew it would be the last time. I smiled, said thank you, and walked out, knowing that was the last deal I'd ever close in a company that still bore my name. Back at my desk, I started boxing up my life. Word had clearly gotten out. There was a chill in the air, like everyone was holding their breath. Thomas Griffin, my marketing director and most trusted colleague for 5 years, stood in my doorway, pale. "This is about Brooke taking over, isn't it?" he asked, already knowing the answer. I kept it polished. "I'm moving on to new opportunities." The classic exit line, but Thomas didn't buy it. "Vanessa, save the PR spin. You and I both know half our client base signed because of you. Walter asks for you by name." Then Mia Jensen, our top account executive, appeared beside him. "We'll back you, whatever you need. Just Is there any chance you'd reconsider? I've made up my mind, I said, more gently. You two are incredible. I hope this place doesn't lose you too. As I slipped my awards off the shelf, Elijah McCoy, our creative director, popped his head in, face unreadable. Brooke's already throwing around words like full rebrand and influencer strategy. She's ditching B2B like it's a dirty word. Does she even know that's what keeps the lights on? I nodded. Not my mess anymore. Still, a pang of guilt twisted in my gut. For the team, not the company. By noon, Brooke sauntered in, didn't even glance at my office. She may as well have thrown a party. An hour later, the scraping sound of furniture. I peeked out just in time to see maintenance hauling away my desk as Brooke instructed a decorator on a more modern vibe. She was erasing me in real time, like I'd never existed. The team stared in stunned silence. Many of them had grown under my guidance. They knew what this spectacle meant. Her first move? A company-wide email, sent while I was still packing, declaring a creative-first culture with inspiration-based hours. No structure, no schedule. Chaos with a filter. On paper, it sounded hip. In reality, it would tank us. Our clients didn't want vibes. They wanted precision and timelines. By 3 p.m., I was done. My space was bare, my keycard surrendered, my exit interview processed by an HR rep who hugged me when no one was watching. As I made my final walk through the creative floor, a few team members stood up, quietly, respectfully. No applause, no words, just solemn respect that cracked something in me. I gave them a small nod, forced a smile, and turned toward the elevator before the tears won. Outside, I paused. That building, those windows. I had poured years into it, believing one day it would bear my name in more than just email signatures. I drove home on autopilot, opened that bottle of wine I'd been saving for a someday celebration. This wasn't the celebration I'd envisioned, but it was a beginning of sorts. Not the toast I expected, but it marked the line where old dreams ended, and something raw and real began. The mask I'd worn all day shattered the moment I locked my front door. I cried. I raged. I sat in silence, staring into space, mourning not just a job, but an identity I had clung to since I was 20. This wasn't just a resignation. It was the death of the future I'd imagined since I was a little girl, playing with paper files in my dad's home office. 2 days later, the vultures, aka competitors, descended. Apparently, word of my exit had traveled faster than I expected. Redmont and Reed offered me a creative director role, 30% more than I'd ever made, full autonomy. Pulse Collective proposed inventing a title just for me, Chief of Client Innovation. Even StrivePoint, a national powerhouse, dangled a regional VP spot if I helped them break into the Midwest. I thanked them all, but didn't commit. Not yet. For the first time since graduation, I had no blueprint. It was equal parts terrifying and exhilarating. But the thing that truly weighed on me? My clients. Not accounts. People. These weren't logos on a roster. These were folks whose kids' names I knew, who'd called me at 10 p.m. in crisis, who trusted me when their reputations were on the line. I'd walked some through rebrands, others through leadership meltdowns, and a few through full-blown PR nightmares. I knew their kids' allergies, their quiet fears, their impossible goals, and they knew they could count on me. Leaving them felt like betrayal, like deserting friends right when the storm was coming. Still, I needed space. Time to breathe without obligation, without performance metrics hanging over my head. I had a cushion, savings, some smart investments. Enough to give myself 3 months to do nothing but think. Maybe this exit, violent and unfair as it felt, was the very push I needed to finally do what I'd always whispered about. Build my own agency, without anyone else's last name on the door. Meanwhile, trouble at Carter & Company started leaking like a cracked pipe. One colleague texted, "Brooke just replaced all strategy meetings with creative jam sessions, no agendas, just vibes." Another message, Dev teams ready to riot. Priorities change every hour. No direction. It was messy, but I expected some chaos. That's what happens when someone with Pinterest boards tries to run an agency. What I didn't see coming was just how fast the whole thing would nosedive, or how soon my father would show up in my inbox, asking for help. 1 week out, I was still adjusting to this strange, quiet life. Sleeping in lost its charm quickly. Restlessness crept in, disguised as freedom. So I cracked open Excel, dusted off old notes, and started building a real plan. Cost models, client funnels, market gaps. Vanessa Carter, founder. The idea no longer felt impossible. The numbers looked good, better than I expected. With my name and client history, I could likely break even in under 6 months. The foundation was there. That Wednesday, I grabbed coffee with Eleanor Tate, my old mentor. She'd guided me back when I joined the regional AMA chapter straight out of college. Now she ran a booming healthcare strategy firm that every hospital executive wanted a piece of. I laid it all out: Brooke, the takeover, the resignation. Eleanor didn't interrupt once. Well, their loss is the market's windfall, she said. I've been thinking, she continued. I want to expand beyond healthcare. Your B2B background could double our reach overnight. What do you think about teaming up? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tempted. Eleanor had infrastructure, name recognition, a loyal client base, and she was offering it to me. We agreed to reconnect the following week to talk logistics, roles, equity splits. It was real. On the drive back, my phone buzzed. It was Miles Chen, one of the senior designers still stuck at Carter & Company. Curious, I picked up. Vanessa, it's mayhem, he said without even saying hello. Brooke fired the accounting team yesterday, said they were challenging her vision, and now she wants to toss out the entire strategic framework, all of it. I kept my voice calm. I'm sorry, Miles, but why are you telling me this? Because Hanover's about to walk, he replied flatly. She insisted on leading the quarterly review herself. It was a train wreck. Walter asked where you were, and she said the company had outgrown rigid strategy. She told him we were moving into a bold new direction, and that your methods were outdated. I winced hard. Walter Hanover lived and breathed data-driven strategy. Telling him anything we built was outdated was like lighting a match in a room full of gas. She pitched this bizarre campaign. No numbers, no performance data, just buzzwords and mood boards. When he pushed back, she told him intuitive marketing was the future and that data was holding us back. Over the next 48 hours, more updates came in. Brooke had knocked down every meeting room wall to create a collaborative think space. Clients had nowhere to speak privately anymore. She also forced in a new PM system. Zero training, total chaos, missed deadlines, confused teams, furious clients, and the cherry on top, she started cold pitching fashion and wellness brands, industries we had zero credibility in. Meanwhile, existing clients weren't getting callbacks. Then, Friday morning, Thomas Griffin called me directly. It happened, he said, sounding hollow. Hanover showed up to sign the new fiscal year deal. Brooke hijacked the meeting. She scrapped everything, the strategic sync framework, all of it, pitched some made-up concept called intuitive engagement dynamics. I blinked. That's not even a real thing. I rubbed the bridge of my nose, already feeling the headache coming. Exactly. Walter asked for case studies, ROI data, anything concrete. Brooke had nothing. Nada. And then she made it worse. Told him Hanover Group's entire brand was aging poorly and needed a youthful rebrand. For a company dealing in medical real estate and industrial development. I could practically see Walter's face, the way his jaw locks and his eyes narrow, like he's already writing you off in his head. He had zero tolerance for people who didn't do their homework. He stood up mid-meeting, told her, "Thank you for your time," and said they would not be renewing. No drama, just surgical. $8 million, Thomas said flatly. Brooke apparently tried to backpedal, but Walter just handed her a card and said, "If Vanessa ever comes back, Tell her to call me directly. The fallout was instant. Hanover had been our backbone for 15 years. More than half of Carter & Co.'s yearly revenue vanished in one afternoon. Their exit left a financial crater so deep it might as well have been an extinction event. Word was, Brooke completely unraveled after Walter left. She blamed the account team for not prepping her properly, the creatives for being uninspired, and even the front desk for bad lobby energy. Everyone except the person in the mirror. Accountability? Not her style. By Monday, 3 more major clients scheduled account direction meetings, which is code for, we're halfway out the door. The staff smelled blood. LinkedIn was buzzing. Resumes were flying. The exodus had begun. 2 senior account managers didn't wait around. They took jobs elsewhere and left gaping holes in client coverage. My dad? Radio silent. But my mom left voicemail after voicemail, escalating from let's talk to full-blown guilt trips about family unity and healing. I didn't respond. This wasn't some sibling squabble. This was what happens when you hand the keys to someone who never learned how to drive. That afternoon, another name lit up my screen, Mia Jensen. She'd just quit. Brooke called an all hands, Mia said, almost laughing. She told the whole team losing Hanover was a strategic repositioning to make space for more forward-thinking clients. Then she blamed you, said you created a toxic performance culture that the company was still healing from. I actually laughed. Loud. Bitterness and disbelief in one exhale. And let me guess, how'd that land? 3 more people quit on the spot, Mia said, including Thomas. Carter & Company is going down fast, Vanessa. I figured you should hear it from someone who still respects you. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there with a cocktail of emotions, vindication laced with grief. I had poured too much into Carter & Company to feel joy watching it collapse, even if that collapse screamed proof of what I was worth. What haunted me most wasn't the betrayal. It was knowing my old team was paying for Brooke's incompetence and my parents' blind favoritism. Still, I'd made my exit, and I intended to stay gone. Eleanor and I were set to meet the next day. For the first time, I could see myself stepping into a future that had nothing to do with the Carter legacy. Then came the first text from my dad. 8:47 p.m. Vanessa, we need to talk. It's important. I ignored it. 9:22 p.m. Please call me. This affects people who care about you. That one was harder to brush off. By 10:15, I know you're angry, but this is bigger than a family fight. The company is in real trouble. At 11 p.m., curled up in bed, my screen lit up with his name. Against every fiber of instinct, I answered. Hello. My voice? Ice cold. Vanessa. His voice was almost unrecognizable, strained, defeated. I wouldn't call unless I had to. I let the silence hang like a guillotine. We lost Hanover Group. The words crawled out like broken glass. I know. A pause. Of course you do. He exhaled like it took his spine with it. What you might not know, Brightwell Logistics and Silver Bay are threatening to drop us too. We're on the edge, Vanessa. The agency, the building, the jobs, everything we built, it's slipping away. And Brooke? What's she got to say now? I couldn't stop the venom. She's not coping. This is more than she can handle. She wasn't ready. You think? I muttered. I'm calling to ask. He stopped, swallowed. I'm calling to ask for your help. My help? I said, flat as steel. You mean the employee who was just doing her job? The one not worth a single share in the empire she helped grow? I was wrong, he said, barely above a whisper. We were wrong, completely. It was nice to hear, but it didn't come close to fixing what was broken. So what exactly do you want from me, Dad? Come back. Help us fix this. We'll talk terms, ownership, whatever it takes. Just don't let it fall apart. 38 families are counting on those paychecks, Vanessa. He knew exactly which nerve to hit. My loyalty to the team. Not him, not Brooke, the team. He remembered I built that team like a family. I'll think about it, I said at last. That's all you're getting tonight. Thank you, he breathed. That's more than I deserve. I hung up and stared into the dark ceiling above, my mind spinning like a roulette wheel. Part of me wanted to watch them drown in the mess they made, but another part knew the staff didn't deserve this. And deep down, a sharper voice whispered, this was leverage, maybe even destiny. The next morning, my phone rang again. This time, it was my mother. Unlike Dad, Mom went full emotional gymnast, apologizing one second, guilt-tripping the next. We're truly sorry we didn't value what you brought, she started. Then, of course, she pivoted. But families need to rally during storms. Your sister, she's heartbroken. She cried herself to sleep. When her guilt play failed, my mom pivoted to her next move. Classic emotional pressure. Your father hasn't slept. He's pale, stressed, and his blood pressure's dangerously high. Vanessa, I'm scared for him. Then came the real reason she called. He's willing to give you 20% of the company. It's generous, considering everything. You mean the part where Brooke drove the company into a ditch in under 2 weeks? I snapped. Vanessa, she's doing her best. No one expected Hanover to react that way. I did. I literally predicted that. In writing, I warned both of you that Hanover valued consistency and trust, neither of which Brooke even pretended to grasp before she tore it all down. Silence. Then, in a small voice, what would it take to bring you back? I don't know that I want to come back, I said truthfully. I'm looking at paths that don't come wrapped in family dysfunction. Please think about it, she pleaded. Your dad? He's willing to go further than ever before. I ended the call and immediately rang Jenna Kane, my ride or die since undergrad, and the only person who'd tell me the truth, not what I wanted to hear. We met at a low-key cafe in Hillcrest, far from any corporate eavesdropping. So let me see if I've got this, Jenna said, raising an eyebrow after I recapped. They gave the firm to Brooke, a walking Pinterest board with zero leadership experience, and tossed your decade of work like yesterday's draft memo. She wrecked your biggest account in days, and now they want you to swoop in and fix it. With 20% as a thank you prize? Pretty much, I nodded. And yeah, part of me is considering it. She blinked in disbelief. I poked at my salad, appetite long gone. My team, my real team, some of them followed me through 3 job changes. They don't deserve this fallout. Admirable, Jenna said, but not your cross to carry. Your parents handed Brooke the keys and ignored the fire alarms. This might be karma with perfect timing. Maybe, I muttered. But if Carter's strategic crashes, my name goes with it. Clients won't care who was in charge, just that it failed. And let's be honest, my name is the brand. Jenna leaned back. You're not thinking of crawling back. You're thinking of claiming what should have been yours. She read me like a resume. Is that ruthless? I asked. It's business, she shrugged. It's also justice. They gambled. They lost. Now you have leverage. Use it. Just know exactly what you want before you walk into that room. That night, I sat on my balcony with a legal pad and a bottle of wine, listing terms, not suggestions, not what they'd offer, what I'd take. As the list grew, I realized this wasn't about shares or job titles anymore. This was about control, legacy, and never again being the afterthought in my own damn story. But before I made a single move, I needed clarity. On my terms. The next morning, I picked up my phone and dialed Walter Hanover. His executive assistant patched me through instantly. That kind of access wasn't standard, and I knew it. Vanessa Carter, Walter said, his voice rough but warmer than usual. I figured I'd hear from you eventually, I said, keeping my voice calm. Sounds like things got messy over at Carter Strategic. Situation? That's a generous term, Walter said, letting out a dry, mirthless laugh. Your sister trashed our brand, ignored every concern we raised, and pitched a campaign that showed no clue how our business works. That's not a situation, Vanessa. That's pure incompetence. I flinched, but he wasn't wrong. Not even close. I've stepped away from Carter Strategic, as I'm sure you've heard. Figured as much. Shame, really. You were the reason we stuck with a mid-tier firm instead of going national. Then he paused. So, what now? You landing somewhere else? Because if so, I might just follow. There it was. The door cracked open. I'm exploring some options, actually, I said. One scenario includes me returning to Carter Strategic in a senior leadership role. If that happens, would Hanover Development reconsider pulling out? That depends, he said flatly. Will you be calling the shots? Or just playing babysitter while Brooke runs the place into the ground? I wouldn't even consider it without majority control and full executive authority. Get that in writing, Walter said, and we'll have a serious conversation. But don't take too long. I've got 2 national agencies knocking. I can't hold our Q4 planning hostage for sentimentality. Thanks for the honesty. I'll circle back soon, either way. After the call, I rang Eleanor Tate. She deserved to know. She was disappointed, but not surprised. Family firms come with complications. Family companies, she said, wise as always. They're like onions, full of hidden layers, and some make you cry. If you go back, Vanessa, make damn sure it's on your terms. And remember, my door's still open. With Walter's interest unofficially back on the table, and Eleanor in my corner, I messaged my dad. Willing to talk terms, tomorrow, 1 p.m., Foxgrove Cafe, just the 4 of us, no attorneys yet. First we agree on principles. His reply came almost instantly. We'll be there, thank you. I spent that evening like I was prepping for a boardroom takeover, listing my non-negotiables, pressure points, and my walkaway threshold. This wasn't just about business. This was about rewriting the power structure inside my own bloodline, and I had to play it perfectly, emotionally cool, strategically ruthless. I arrived at Foxgrove Cafe 15 minutes early. Picked a quiet corner, back to the wall, always good to see who's coming. I ordered my usual, black coffee, no frills, and reviewed my battle plan one more time. At exactly 1 p.m., they walked in. Dad looked like he hadn't slept in days. Mom wrung her hands. And Brooke? Brooke was sulking like a grounded teenager. Thanks for coming, Dad said, his voice rough as they sat down. I cut in, politely but firmly. Let's make one thing clear before we start. This isn't a family favor. This is business. We're here to decide if me returning to Carter Strategic makes sense for everyone involved. Brooke rolled her eyes. God, you're always so theatrical. Brooke, Mom said softly, warning in her tone. I didn't even blink, kept going. Before we get into terms, I want a full, unfiltered picture of where things stand right now. So, Dad, I began, what's the actual financial damage? He hesitated, jaw tightening, before laying it out bluntly. Reynolds is gone, obviously. 2 mid-tier clients have pulled out. 3 more hit pause, pending agency review. If nothing changes fast, we're staring down a 70% revenue drop within 60 days. We've got maybe 3 months of burn left before we have to start letting people go, he added, voice hollow. I nodded slowly, then turned toward Brooke. What's your take, Brooke? She shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. It's been a difficult transition. The team's not fully aligned with my vision, and certain clients are resisting the evolution I'm trying to lead. With more time? She started. Time, I cut in, is the one thing this company no longer has. Reynolds made up half of our annual revenue. That exit alone detonated the budget. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Brooke snapped suddenly. Watching it all crash just so you can swoop in and play the hero? Brooke, Mom said sharply, horrified. I didn't flinch. Actually, I've spent the week taking calls from loyal employees scrambling to update resumes. There's nothing satisfying about that. I turned back to Dad and calmly began. So, here are my terms. 1. I want 51% controlling ownership of Carter Strategic. 51? Dad looked like he'd swallowed glass. Non-negotiable, I added before he could object. I'm not putting out fires just to have the arsonist second-guess every move I make. What about me? Brooke cut in, voice rising. You expect me to just step aside? That brings me to term number 2, I said evenly. Brooke will move into a non-executive role, community relations, special projects, whatever fits. She'll keep 15% equity. That way, your charisma and public face still have value, but you won't be steering the ship you don't know how to sail. And what about your father and me? Mom asked softly, eyes glassy. You'll both keep a combined 34%, but you step away from the day-to-day. You'll serve on the board. You'll be informed, but you won't control the wheel anymore. Dad's face reddened. So we're just being pushed out of our own company. The same company you handed over entirely to Brooke, despite her resume being mostly vibes and vacation photos, I said coolly. I'm not cutting you out. I'm just refusing to let you steer it off a cliff. And what if we say no? Brooke snapped. Then I wish you all the best, I said, calm as ever. I've got a standing offer from Eleanor Tate. We'd hit the ground running. And trust me, we would move forward. Carter Strategic will be a shell of itself in 6 months unless something drastic changes. That's not a threat. It's math. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. Dad stared down into his coffee as if it might offer a solution. There's one more thing, I said. We create a formal board. 2 outside directors, real industry pros. No family ties, full veto power on major moves. All major decisions go through that board. That includes me. No more unilateral ego moves. You've really thought this through, Dad said, sounding winded. Yeah, I said. Because unlike the emotional handoff to Brooke, this plan is rooted in business logic, not bloodline bias. The jab hit its mark. Dad winced, visibly. I'll need time to think, he murmured. Walter Reynolds won't wait forever, I reminded him quietly. Tick-tock. Neither will our clients or staff, I added. They're already entertaining outside offers. And who could blame them? Brooke, who had been quietly simmering, suddenly exploded. This is blackmail, she snapped. You're hijacking a crisis to steal our company. Brooke, I said with a heavy sigh. This company's in free fall because of choices you and Mom and Dad made, not me. I'm offering a lifeline, one that protects employees, saves client contracts, and yes, preserves the family name, though not the structure. The alternative? Me walking away and watching Carter Strategic implode while I build something stronger without it. And I will. The truth hit hard. For once, she didn't fire back. Then, to my surprise, her eyes welled up. I never wanted this, she whispered. I thought running a company meant having a vision and letting other people do the heavy lifting. I didn't get what you actually did every day. I didn't realize the weight you were carrying until it crushed me. It was the first real thing she'd said in weeks. Something in me softened. Strategy's not something you wing. I studied it, practiced it, lived it, and it still took me years to master. Dad cleared his throat. If, and that's a big if, we accept your terms, how fast can you turn this around? I'd start immediately. First step, personal calls to Reynolds and the others on the fence. Walter, at least, might still be salvageable, if I get to him fast enough. Next, I focus on our people, reassure them, return structure, stop the bleeding. Within 30 days, we'll know if we've bought back their trust, or buried the brand. Mom, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. And what about us? How do we fix this? It was the question I didn't want to face but knew was coming. That's a separate conversation, I said carefully. It'll take time, boundaries, and respect, on all sides. I'm open to trying if you are. Dad nodded after a long pause. We'll accept, at least in principle. Have your attorney draw it up. We'll get ours to review it. 1 week, I said firmly. Sign or I walk, no extensions. Understood, he replied, suddenly looking older, smaller, human. As we gathered our things, Brooke reached for my arm, hesitantly. For what it's worth. I'm sorry, she said, voice low. I thought I was grabbing an opportunity. I didn't realize I was stealing it from you. It wasn't a full reckoning, but it was a beginning. I gave her a small nod. Not forgiveness, but something like openness. Community outreach actually sounds more my vibe, she added with a self-deprecating smile. Especially if it means I never have to see another budget spreadsheet again. For the first time in what felt like forever, the tightness between us eased, slightly. We still had miles to go, to rebuild trust, to realign power, but we'd taken the first necessary step. 1 year later, I stood in my office, the same space I had stormed out of, humiliated and furious. Now it was mine, redesigned to reflect clarity, not chaos. The road back had been brutal, no shortcuts, no safety nets, but the results, they roared. Within 48 hours of signing, I called Walter Reynolds myself. I laid it all out. He agreed to return on a 3-month trial. That trial ended in success. We grew the deal to $10 million with their Asia launch. Bradshaw and Clearwater came back once they knew I was in charge. Of the 5 clients Brooke lost, I brought 3 back. That alone was a win. The team settled fast. I convinced Thomas Grant to return with a better offer. Others stayed because I did. Simple as that. We lost a few, but the core held strong. First move? Structure. Clear roles, real accountability, no more chaos, no more family bias. Every call now had to make business sense. Shockingly, Brooke thrived in community relations. She built a CSR program that won us press and goodwill. Brooke was a natural at events. Charming, connected, loud in all the right ways. For once, we weren't rivals. We each had a lane and stayed in it. The new board setup was one of my smartest moves. I brought in Janet Blackwell and Richard Delgado. No-nonsense outsiders who kept us honest. They challenged us constantly and blocked any drift back into family drama. Things with my parents stayed professional at first. Quarterly meetings, nothing more. The damage was deep, but when they saw the turnaround, respect started to grow. 6 months in, Dad asked to bring back our old dinner tradition. Just us. Mom took longer, but she got there. Eventually, she admitted she enabled it all. 1 year later, the company wasn't just alive, it was thriving. We grew the client base by 15%, zeroing in on high-fit, high-margin sectors. I turned the alignment model Brooke wanted to scrap into IP. Now, it's our competitive edge. Most importantly, we wrote a real succession plan, based on merit, not last names. The board approved the plan, and we rolled it out company-wide with full transparency. What almost broke us became the turning point we needed. I stopped chasing approval and started owning my value. Brooke found her lane, community outreach, where she actually thrived. Even our parents began to face their blind spots and take steps to make it right. Perfect? Not even close. But progress? Absolutely. The shift was real. From entitlement to earned authority, from assumptions to results. The biggest takeaway wasn't business, it was about self-worth. Walking away gave me the leverage to claim what I should have had all along. Sometimes, losing everything is how you finally gain what matters. That shift changed how I see every relationship, personal or professional. I don't settle anymore. I don't apologize for expecting to be seen. Being overlooked by family lit a fire I refused to let die. Now, I'm building something better, on my terms. A business built on merit. Relationships rooted in respect. A life grounded in self-trust. If you've ever faced that same fork in the road, I hope this story gives you courage. Just because they don't see your worth doesn't mean it's not there. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away until the right terms are on the table. Thanks for watching. Remember, Knowing your worth is step one to owning it.